Well, hello, good morning and welcome to another episode of the Health Hub. My name's Garry Borman. I am a qualified naturopath, nutritionist and herbalist, and I've been in clinical practice now for a bit over 14 years. The idea of the Health Hub is to provide some information to you, friends, family, loved ones, small furry animals, if whatever takes your fancy, in a light and entertaining way, but actually presenting the facts in a real manner and not some of the BS that you are going to read in some of the online magazines or a lot of the rubbish that you're going to hear on the media. I'm all about not selling newspapers or clicks. It's just about giving you the facts, make you feel better. So to get into this, as we do every week, starting with the disclaimer. The following segment should be considered as information, education and entertainment only. It is not designed to replace professional, individualised recommendations and does not infer ceasing prescription medications. If the information presented here causes concerns about your current health regime, discuss these concerns with the prescribing clinician or a qualified healthcare practitioner in a proper clinical environment. And we say that every week because that doesn't mean go down to the health food store and have a chat. They are generally ill prepared to be able to take proper case notes as far as diet, lifestyle, any medications as well. Don't discuss it with the guy over the back fence. They don't know, and definitely do not go talking about this with someone who's just taking on the latest multi-level marketing nutritional super product and they're suddenly a weekend expert, because sometimes they can be even worse. There are plenty of nutrients that shouldn't be prescribed in certain conditions, and unfortunately the fervour of some of these people is a little bit extreme, and they're just not qualified. You're an accountant Monday to Friday, or you're an accountant 9 to 5, and then suddenly you're a nutritional expert. Which is what leads us in a couple of our stories today. The agenda: misrepresentations and practicing outside of scope. Yep, someone got smacked and all I can do is laugh about it. The truth on coronavirus, you've probably heard about it, it's in the news a lot, and there's a lot of garbage out there, so we'll tell you some real stuff, give you a different perspective on that, and you can make up your own mind. And a little bit of truth on the flu shot that's coming. A lot of people ask me about that every single season. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and also, new do this week, looking a bit different up top, thanks to Dawn at Its Personal Boutique. Thank you very much. Alright, misrepresentations and practicing outside of scope. This term, outside of scope, is basically when you're doing things that you are not qualified to do. Think those people that they might be a qualified lawyer, accountant, they could be a fantastic greenkeeper Monday to Friday and 9 to 5, but they are not the people that are qualified in nutrition, and a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous. We talk about a lot of Goldilocks stuff, too little is bad, too much is bad, just right is what we need. Because some of those really dyed-in-the-wool experts, they're putting out some pretty stupid stories. I remember Mr. Professor Pellegrini. Disappointing. Anyway, what we have is a story, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Alexander Strand. He was smacked very heavily on the PP recently by the New South Wales Healthcare Complaints Commission. What they talk about is making sure that you practice within your scope. So you need to be able to make claims about the efficiency of your treatment that can be substantiated. You also have to have the knowledge and expertise to determine whether the products may cause adverse reactions or react with other medications. And you also have to have the qualifications and trainings and not misrepresent yourself as having that. Mr. Strand actually apparently couldn't prove that. He was trying to provide services he wasn't qualified to provide. He tried to go outside of his experience and training. Apparently he also didn't have a sound understanding of adverse reactions between therapies and products they might have prescribed. Now, it goes on to say that a practitioner must not hold himself out to be qualified if they are not, or engage in any form of misrepresentation in relation to his qualifications, training or professional affiliations. So in the case of Mr. Strand, he was declared a risk to the health and safety of the members of the public and was permanently prohibited from providing any health services. So cop that one. Ah, suck eggs, dude. No sympathy at all for that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, that does trickle down into some of our other health professionals who should know better. And there are plenty in my area alone. I'll give you the tip, and it's really quite disappointing when we hear about what some people have been told by these other people. Let's just, as an example, say a chiropractor. Chiropractors are not trained in nutrition. They might have done a little bit, but they are allowed to sell ingestibles, which is just all wrong in my opinion. So we know, for instance, there are certain nutrients that you shouldn't take if you've got cancer, for instance. Or there are sometimes you should take them in conjunction with chemo to get a better result. We know that even vitamin D, there are some conditions you should not take vitamin D for. There are some where you need to take more. This is all the stuff that they're not taught, they're not trained upon, and it's only a passing interest as to why they might get it. So there are some that try to push these supplements onto their patients just because it's going to put more money in their back pocket, and it's wrong. I really do hope they get caught soon and they get smacked hard because they'll deserve it. Other areas, it's like saying that you can help with fibromyalgia, so myofascial pain disease. If you're a chiropractor, you deal with the skeleton, dude. Myofascial pain, bone therapists, absolutely fantastic for it, and I'm a big fan of acupuncture too. And acupuncturists are another one, but they get minimal training, 1 or 2 lectures, lectures or subjects, I can't recall. We had a couple come in when I was doing my nutritional training, can't remember for how long, I think it was only a couple of lectures. So they get a little bit, they're skilled on Chinese herbs, they are sensational with all the meridians and acupuncture points, and they're fantastic, but their knowledge on nutrition, look, it's not there, but they can certainly prescribe Chinese herbs, and I've got no problem with that. Yeah, even massage people, there's another one. You know, massage is good for a lot of people, but geez, if you've got fibromyalgia, getting a massage, the pain you're going to be in, if you don't understand it, don't say you can fix it. And even those that like to prescribe good old magnesium, look, I can think of at least 10 different types of magnesium. Some are going to give you basically diarrhea. They're no fun at all if you get the doses wrong. And there are others that are way better absorbed. So knowing what you're talking about is crucial, and do not trust anyone who isn't qualified in what they're talking about. So don't be afraid to ask. Oh, so if your chiropractor is saying you need to have some vitamin D, you need to have fish oils, why is that? How do you know this? What are your qualifications? Look, I love a good chiropractoring and my body does well for it. Person who I tend to go and see, if anyone asks about nutrition, they've got other things outside of scope, he refers to me. If only they were all like that. So simple. Coronavirus. We've all heard about it in the media. It's pretty hard to dodge, actually, in the media. And there is just so much hype out there, so much rubbish that, dead set, you just want to go and hide underneath your desk and hope that someone will slide you a slice of pizza every now and then, and it's all just going to go away. Yes, there are lots of people that are dying from it. It is a very nasty condition. Is it as bad as what the cure is with the world in lockdown and world financial crisis? Well, you can take on board a couple of things that I'll share with you, and if you make up your own opinion from there, you can voice it accordingly. So, I did talk about something a few weeks ago where we know that seasonal flu worldwide kills between 300,000 and about 650,000 people. That's a lot of bodies. So we're nothing like that. Yeah, what do they say? They say that at least that number of 300,000, they think up to 500,000 every single year. So this is just, it's another flu statistic, unfortunately. In my mind, they're talking about all sorts of scary numbers. 10,000 dying in New York alone. Here's a scary number. Did you know that the rate of heart disease in Americans is 160 per 100,000, which in a population of 250 million means that there are 40,000 people that die every year of heart disease in America. And you don't hear boo about that. Now, if you want lockdown, lock down all of your Burger Kings, your Wendy's, your McDonald's, Taco Bell's. Pick a chain over there, I don't know them all. That's where a lot of your problems are coming from, because they're also running out 32% of the population being overweight and 40% being obese. Now that's a big number. And why does that matter to coronavirus? Because a lot of the people that are dying have underlying health issues, and that is a lot to do with cardiovascular problems or respiratory problems. So we know the majority of people that are overweight tend to need CPAP machines because they stop breathing when they sleep. They've got sleep apnea going on. We also know that there's a lot of extra load on their heart, and that's why there is such a high amount of people dying from cardiovascular disease every single year in the United States. No questions asked, no one bats an eyelid. There's probably some of the scariest sort of numbers. And they're the secondaries. They're the ones that are going to get knocked around a lot more if they do contract coronavirus, because it loves going to your lungs. It causes a lot of problems with that secondary pneumonia and puts a lot more load in your heart. So plenty of people were dying from heart attacks, which was the complication of the pneumonia from the coronavirus. So thinking ahead a little bit there, we might just see some movement of these figures or potential fudging of these figures just to try and make one disease look better or worse. You know, we really don't know. But here in Australia, we've got a very different probability of what's going to happen as far as coronavirus flows out. Now, Mr. Scummo, this is for you, by the way, he's saying, oh, we're doing a sensational job. We've only got 60 odd people who have died at the time of recording this. We're doing so well compared to the rest of the world. It's not what you're doing, dude. We are in a very, very different position to the rest of the world. We're in the southern hemisphere. We've just come out of our long, hot summer. We're loaded with vitamin D, whereas all of the doom and gloom is coming out of the northern hemisphere. You know, they had snow. They actually had very cold winters there. They tend to have low vitamin D because of that. We know that you wash off 10 to 20 points at least of vitamin D over the course of winter, and we know that, for instance, a lot of Americans tend to be very low in vitamin D. So there is something that's not going to help your immune system straight up, because we know good levels of vitamin D very beneficial for any respiratory condition and the immune system fighting off cold sores, etc. Anyway, so the northern hemisphere has just come out of their long winter, so people have probably already contracted the flu, or they've been knocked around in some way, shape or form. A lot of the places that they're making big deals about also, and I'm just going to pick Italy and New York as examples, lots of close quarter living. So, you know, you look at the streets of Italy, very compact. They'll even have multi-generations in a small area. Very, very easy to spread this virus around very, very quickly. New York is just the land of high-rises. It's not the land of big backyards and backyard cricket or backyard baseball, as they might play. Very compact, recirculated air, lots of people, close quarters, the ability to spread the virus very quickly, and there we go. We know the American race isn't the healthiest race on the planet. They might have one of the better medical systems and lots of technology, but not a healthy race. When you hear those figures of obesity, and cardiovascular disease and death is the #1 cause of death in the United States. So people with bad hearts, they get coronavirus, they're going to be in trouble. So it's not a surprising thing as to why New York's in a lot of trouble. You know, looking back at Italy, second oldest population in the world according to stats, behind Japanese in Okinawa, I believe. Also very high smoking prevalence. So if you've got a lot of people that are smoking, there's going to be respiratory distress and problems, and you can further complicate that with being inside in their winter, nice and cold, everything's locked up. If you've got smokers, there's going to be a lot of that secondary smoke that you're going to be breathing in, so quite big potential for respiratory problems there. So again, not surprising, we see big numbers coming out of Italy to follow New York. Now, the difference for us, we're coming out of our summer. We also tend to live apart. We've got our big blocks of land here, you know, the Australian dream, having a quarter acre, go and play your backyard cricket. Now in some cities we're seeing that, that change, going for a lot more high-rises, apartment living, etc. Which again, you know, we see plenty of that in Sydney, and New South Wales tends to lead the country as far as flu stats every season, and they're leading as far as coronavirus stats go. So I don't know, we're starting to see a bit of a pattern here. Perhaps, perhaps not. Perhaps it is nothing more than just a pattern. But yeah, I believe very firmly that's why we've got a low body count, because we've got plenty of space. We like our outdoors, we like to be out. And yeah, summertime, guys, vitamin D. Vitamin D is fantastic. If they'd allow us to have some vitamin C as an SEA, we'd probably do even better as bronzed Aussies. Anyway, what we do know a little bit as well with coronavirus, in case you're wondering about that, you're still tuned in, I haven't totally discussed it yet. High prevalence of people lose their sense of taste and smell early in the case. 70% in some countries, as low as 30% in others. And they really don't know why. Give you a red hot tip. Zinc. Zinc is responsible for our sense of taste and smell. So it is my very, very firm belief, those that might be a little bit low in zinc, you know, we use zinc in a couple 100 reactions in the human body. We use it for lots of stuff. Now, if your body says, wow, what is this thing attacking me? I need to reroute some zinc from a lot of other functions into the immune system and, you know, production of white blood cells and just having those little guys go and do battle. Sense of taste and smell, there could be a reason for that. So if you were low in zinc and your body says, I've got to reroute it somewhere else, that could be the exact reason why people notice this first up. Which is why I'm a big fan saying, take lots of zinc, build up your zinc levels, make sure you've got high levels. So contrary to what Professor Pellegrini says, that you can't build your immune system up, we know we have zinc stores. You can build your levels of zinc up, and there are numerous peer-reviewed articles published in prestigious journals like the Lancet, BMJ, that say higher levels of zinc will help you fight off viruses. It's statistics, facts, terrible stuff. Yeah, keeping with the coronavirus stuff though, we do know it does come on very fast, and that's why prevention is critical with this one. So making sure you've got all the tools your immune system needs before it needs them. You don't go seeing the gates open at the Melbourne Cup or the Kentucky Derby and a couple of horses just wait for them to, you know, get a few strides ahead and then they try and catch up. Nobody does that. You know, it's always you want to be on pole position if you're racing because you want to be out front and first. If you've got lots of zinc, lots of C in you, plenty of vitamin D, having a fair diet, you're on the front foot, you're on pole position, you're not starting at the back and trying to play catch up. When you're at the back and playing catch up, that's when things get difficult. You don't wait till you've been battling for a few days and go, I better start trying to do something. Front foot. This is probably the biggest time that people need to be on the front foot as opposed to any other year, because this one comes on quickly and it hits the elderly very hard. Elderly and immune compromised. So it's the other thing. So heart issues, diabetes, high blood pressure, asthmatics, they all need to be very careful with that. And if you've got problems with your heart, you really do need to get as much preventative stuff as you can into you. And I'd even throw in some CoQ10 or ubiquinol would be the ideal, because we need ubiquinol as opposed to regular CoQ10 once we're past 45 anyway. So I'd be going very hard into that just to give my mitochondria in my heart every little bit of energy that they might need if they do have to start pumping that blood around a little bit harder. The other thing, like I've said a couple of times here, the majority that do have problems with coronavirus and make up a fair amount of the fatalities have pre-existing medical conditions. They don't talk about that a lot, but if you do a bit of a deep dive, you'll find a lot of people weren't real well up front, and this virus just knocked them around a little bit too much. So front foot, be well. Do what you can. Alright, so what do I think is going to help you this winter? Well, I've said it before, look, zinc. I get zinc made for me so it has zinc as well as vitamin C in it, because frontline immune system nutrients as far as vitamins go and minerals go. So get both in, have plenty, good levels of both, and that is going to help you. Does it mean you won't catch it? Not at all. Will it reduce your severity? Extraordinarily high probability. A lot of the tests that you see is not based on give people vitamin C or zinc and then see how many get sick. They wait till they're sick and then they start giving it to them, playing catch up again. Poorly designed as far as that study goes, but it makes it real easy to poo-poo it and say, oh, look, there was hardly any difference in people that took it versus those that didn't. On the front foot, the research is there, we know it. One of my infamous bottles here, we call it Kill Everything because it's got antiviral, antibacterial and antifungal herbs in there. And some of the herbs that are used in here, they have had real research by real research organisations and been published as their efficacy against things like SARS. Now, coronavirus is just, well, SARS is a coronavirus. So this one, COVID-19, is another type of coronavirus. They're calling it SARS-2. We know against MERS it's been effective. HIV, Epstein-Barr, so EBV. What's the other one? Seasonal flu. So numerous types of viruses there is real evidence that some of the herbs used in this little formula, Might Kill Everything, are effective against those viruses. And if we look at the one that we call the Ultimate, it's got a couple of extra herbs in there, and it even has something in there that helps inhibit RNA transcription. So, sorry for a bit of nerd speak this week, but viruses like the COVID-19, they use our RNA to replicate themselves, and then bang, so what, they infect one cell, they replicate heaps, and then when that cell bursts, yeehaw, there's 100 of them out there. And that's why these viruses spread so quickly through our body. It's not like a bacteria that has to go 1 to 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, etc. These things, you get into one cell, it bursts, there's 100, so 100 into that, so it's exponential at how quickly they get in and knock us around, which again, wait until you feel sick. That's really starting after everything else is halfway down the track for you. The other things that I like to use, these little sachets, these are great. We held up this book the other week, so bio brand MGM3, goes under numerous names around the world, just depends on where you get it, has been proven to boost our natural killer cells, and they are our front line as far as getting viruses. So they really have an affinity for a cell that's been infected by a virus. It just goes gulp, eats it, job done. So it makes a lot of sense in my head that we've got plenty of these things running around in our body before we need them. Again, playing catch up. You don't dig the well when you're thirsty, you know, old Chinese philosophy. Do it early, you know, all your squirrels out there, start gathering your nuts before it starts snowing. Just makes sense. Alright, that's my sermon. And as we move into our flu season, which it will be an interesting one for us in Australia because everyone else had the flu season, then coronavirus. We've had plenty of people exposed to coronavirus and probably hurting a lot of them that do recover as far as lung damage goes. And then we're going to go into our flu season. Are we going to have a big one? Like 2019 was one of the worst on record. You know, 217,000 cases was a figure that was reported. That was a story by the ABC. So, you know, will we have that sort of amount again? Hard to say. We probably won't because there is this big lockdown that we're in and people aren't getting around, they're not spreading viruses as early. So when the foot comes off the pedal and we start to associate and mingle again, we might have a lower flu season. It might get quite nasty because there's going to be plenty of people that have already come in contact with the COVID-19. They could still be asymptomatic carriers because this is all brand new stuff to us. You know, pass it on to people there, get a secondary flu, get knocked around very heavily. We really do not know with that one. So I've had people asking me, should I get a flu shot? It's a personal thing. It's up to them. I do not. I don't advocate them. A flu shot is a best guess. So it's been developed by one of the big farmers based on the Northern Hemisphere and what their winter has been like, and they go, you're probably going to see that this season. Again, with lockdowns, etc., that international travel of people from the Northern Hemisphere coming south isn't going to be happening and for a long time, you know, until our borders are opened up again. So what we're going to see, again, this is a totally unknown, very much a best guess of what's going to be cycling around. You know, should they use last season's, for instance? Who knows? These viruses all mutate. Like coronavirus, we know there's 3 mutations already, what they're calling A, B and C. So hanging out for a vaccine for that, that's constantly chasing their tail, guys. Just go to the old stuff, zinc and herbs. Build up our immune system. So, yeah, what are we up for this season? Don't know, but all the things, make sure you are practicing. If you're sneezing, tissue, throw it away, you know, coughing into the arm, trying to stop that spread. And if you do go coughing around, you're wearing your favourite jacket, get it clean. Don't wear it tomorrow. My God, just because there's no marks in the corner doesn't mean it's clean. You've filled it up with viruses. And these viruses can live for varying degrees of time. So we'll talk about it in an upcoming episode. There is a new technique of laser etching some surfaces that makes the bacteria and viruses die a lot faster on them. And the other cool thing is copper-based stuff. So copper or brass is very toxic to viruses. And so we know with coronavirus, again, on glass it can live up to 7 days according to some research. Stainless steel, somewhere between 3 and 5. But some of our porous surfaces, you know, paper and cardboard, a few hours in some of the cases that they've measured. So You know, when copper comes in there at about 4 hours as well, that's pretty impressive. So should we be going to brass doorknobs everywhere and just keep them shiny? Who knows? Anyway, that is the Health Hub for this week. It wasn't brought to you by my active, they should have paid me. So hopefully you've been able to gain some valuable information on this, cut through some of the hype. There are some of the facts out there, but the number one thing you need to do is be on the front foot. In my opinion, start taking your stuff now. You dig that well before you're thirsty, as per what the Chinese say. That way you're going to get the best results. So until next week, be kind to a stranger, because one day that stranger just might be you. See ya.